Dr. Eugene Nagel brought an idea that had been developing throughout the world in the early 60s. It had started in Ireland and was in a few cities in the United States, but it really was revolving around cardiac care. Dr. Nagel had the idea that we can use firefighters that already respond to emergencies, and he can train these firefighters in basic medical care. Well, what were we going to call these firefighters? Eugene Nagel said, well, in the military there are paratroopers, why don't we use the term paramedics? The first paramedics in the world were here, firefighter paramedics in the city of Miami. Dr. Eugene Nagel went to a city commission meeting and a firefighter started an IV on Eugene Nagel to demonstrate that firefighters had the ability and skill to do this life-saving treatment.
The chief said, I remember he punched me in the chest with his finger. He was about a 6'2" Irishman. And he said, this is not a medical school, it's a fire department. And I said, yes, sir. And I said, how about if we go in front of the City of Miami Commission? There were 5 commissioners. And he said, that would be all right. And that day, we met the City of Miami Commission, including the mayor. One of them was the mayor. And they had a fine big setup at Dinner Key and a big table. They sat up higher than the ordinary people. And I made my little dog and pony presentation, and I said if I had a heart attack on the streets of Miami, I'd rather have the paramedics taking care of me. And with that I said, let me simulate a heart attack. And I took my jacket off and got up on their big fine table and laid down, and I said, I'm laying in the street and I'm having chest pain, and the City of Miami Fire Department is called and these paramedics are going to take care of me. And so the paramedics came forward, and then they got an order over the radio, simulated order, to start an IV. And they shook out a 18-gauge needle, put it on the IV, stuck it in my arm, got a little blood on the table, had the IV dripping. And the commissioners all looked at one another and said, we don't see anything wrong with it.
Later, he goes to the city manager's office and a firefighter intubates him to demonstrate that firefighters have the ability to do this.
Next morning, I went down to see Chief Kenny and I told him what we had done. And his eyes rolled back in his head and he said, all right, they can intubate or try to intubate once. And if they don't make it on the first try, then it's bag and mask into the hospital. I said, fair enough, Chief. And that's how intubation got started.
Sometimes innovation is difficult. Sometimes innovation faces skepticism, and you need champions like Eugene Nagel to push it forward.